the silent world. The galaxy was never quiet. Everywhere, voices of different worlds filled the great network of space. Empires argued over borders. Merchant races shouted about trade. Scholars debated over strange discoveries. There was always some noise in the galactic channels. But in all that noise, one voice was missing. The humans had joined the galactic community a little more than 100 years ago. They had the right to speak in the High Council, the right to send messages across the network, the right to trade with alien worlds. And yet, they rarely spoke. When someone asked them a question, they answered with short words. When someone invited them into politics, they said, "Not interested." At first, the galaxy thought it was just caution. A young species, new to the stars, still learning. But years passed. Then decades. And still, Earth stayed silent. Many alien races grew impatient. "They are timid," said the Kryn diplomats, their 6 eyes rolling in mock pity. "A quiet species will always be a weak species." Others agreed. In their history, a race that did not fight for attention was a race that soon disappeared. The nickname began in the Outer Rim, the sleeping planet. It spread quickly. Humans became known as dreamers who looked at the stars but did nothing. They traded politely, worked honestly, but never pushed for power. It was almost as if they were waiting for something. Only a few noticed this strange truth. The Argal scientists had visited Earth many times. They saw human eyes in their cities, watching, measuring, always paying attention. The Argals whispered a warning to the galaxy: "Do not mistake their quiet for weakness. Patience can be dangerous." But the galaxy laughed at the idea. The High Council met every year on the great station of Celeron Prime. Leaders from every empire attended, their ships glittering like jewels in the docking bays. The humans always sent only one representative, a single diplomat named Jonas Hale. He spoke in a calm, slow voice, and never argued with anyone. Other diplomats mocked him. "Careful," one Valoran general joked during a feast. "If you upset him, he might politely walk away." Laughter filled the hall. Jonas smiled faintly, as if the insult didn't matter. What the Valoran general didn't know was that Jonas remembered every face in that room. Every insult. Every arrogant laugh. The humans listened. They listened when the Valoran Dominion crushed smaller worlds into submission. They listened when the Ral Syndicate turned refugee planets into slave markets. They listened when the Council debated, and no one spoke for the weak. But they never acted. Not yet. Some alien historians argued that humans were simple survivors. Their homeworld was not rich with resources, their colonies were few, and their fleet was small. "They can't do anything," said the Kothar merchants. "They are just here to trade and live quietly. That is all." Others disagreed. Quietly, ships that visited Earth returned with strange stories. They saw military bases hidden under mountains, massive shipyards in deep ocean trenches, satellites that moved in odd patterns, as if they were watching something invisible. But there was never proof. And humans denied everything. The galaxy got used to their silence. That is, until the day the Valoran Dominion decided silence was over. The Valorans were the most feared power in the galaxy. Their warships were black as void, armed with weapons that could cut through a planet's crust. Their soldiers were bred for war, standing 3 meters tall, with skin like armor. They ruled through fear, and they loved to remind others of their power. For years, they had ignored Earth. But now, their emperor wanted a new path for his fleets, one that passed directly through human territory. And so, a message was sent. Earth will join the Valoran Dominion and serve the emperor. Refusal will mean destruction. The galaxy didn't expect much. Maybe the humans would surrender quickly. Maybe they would try to negotiate and fail. Either way, it would be over fast. When the Valoran fleet arrived in Sol System, cameras from dozens of worlds tuned in to watch. This was the entertainment of the day, the sleeping planet finally facing reality. But when the message from Earth came back, it was short. Just 2 words. "No. Thank you." The galaxy laughed again. It was such a human answer, polite, but pointless. The Valorans were not amused. They sent their first wave of warships into Earth's orbit. That's when something strange happened. Within minutes of entering the atmosphere, the ships went silent. No signals. No visuals. No screams. Just nothing. Commanders tried to contact them, but there was no reply. The Valorans assumed it was a technical problem. They sent more ships. The same thing happened. In the control rooms of distant worlds, alien observers leaned closer to their screens. Something was wrong. Very wrong. For the first time in a century, Earth had done more than just answer politely. They had answered without words. And across the galaxy, in the sudden quiet that followed, a cold feeling began to grow. Earth was speaking. And it was not speaking in the language of peace anymore. The arrogance of the galaxy. The Valoran Dominion had always believed in one simple truth. Fear was the only language worth speaking. It was a lesson they had taught countless worlds, burning cities into ash, replacing governments with puppet rulers, and branding entire species with the mark of submission. Their ships were nightmares of metal and fire, their banners black as the void, and their leaders were as cruel as they were proud. When Earth said, "No. Thank you," the Valoran Emperor did not hear defiance. He heard a joke. The Emperor's throne was carved from the bones of conquered creatures, his crown made of metal taken from a dying star. As he listened to the human message, he did not frown, he smiled. The thin, cold smile. "Bring me their world," he said. Orders spread like a shadow across the Dominion. From the core systems to the frontier, warships changed course toward the Sol system. Entire fleets were recalled from other battles. The Emperor wanted a display, not just a victory. The fall of Earth would be broadcast live to every corner of the galaxy. Alien rulers from other empires watched with interest. To them, this wasn't war, it was a spectacle. A show of dominance. They sent their fastest ships to join the audience, hoping to see the humans beg for mercy before being erased. But the galaxy was about to learn that Earth had no intention of begging. When the first Valoran fleet entered human space, the invasion began with confidence. Hundreds of black-armored ships descended toward Earth. Soldiers laughed in their barracks, betting on how quickly the planet would surrender. Then the first fleet disappeared. No distress calls. No wreckage. No escape pods. Just silence. Valoran commanders believed it must be a trap, a human minefield or a hidden defense platform. They sent in a second fleet, larger than the first, armed with planetary bombardment weapons. This time they were ready for tricks. And still, they vanished. The broadcasts that were supposed to show Earth's destruction instead showed confusion. The war commentators who were hired to narrate the glorious conquest now stumbled over their words. Viewers around the galaxy leaned forward, wondering what was happening. In the Valoran War Council, voices began to rise. Some demanded caution. Others insisted that humans were just lucky. The Emperor crushed all debate with a single command. All fleets to Earth. What came next was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. From every sector of the Dominion, warships poured towards Sol space. Carriers the size of small moons. Dreadnoughts armed with planet-cracking beams. Troop transports carrying billions of soldiers bred for nothing but war. The Valorans meant to not just conquer Earth, they meant to wipe it from existence. But far away, on the blue and green world they thought was sleeping, humanity was already moving. Across hidden bases buried under mountains, lights flickered on. In deep ocean trenches, massive doors began to open, revealing dark shapes that had been sleeping for decades. On the far side of the moon, something stirred, something with armor blacker than space and engines that glowed like the heart of a star. The humans did not rush. They did not panic. They prepared with the slow, careful precision of a predator that had been waiting far too long for this moment. The Valorans still believed they were the hunters. They were wrong. In the days before the final approach, strange things began happening to the Valoran fleets. Supply ships vanished in transit. Communication lines went dead. Elite scout units sent ahead never returned. Sometimes, a single Valoran ship would limp back into the fleet, empty. No crew. No signs of battle. Just abandoned. The galaxy's other empires began to feel something they had never felt toward Earth before: curiosity. Some even whispered the Argal scientists' old warning, "Do not mistake their quiet for weakness." But for the Valorans, curiosity had no meaning. Pride blinded them. The Emperor declared that the humans were simply delaying the inevitable. "Patience is for the powerless," he told his people. "We are the storm." On the day of the final approach, the Valoran armada darkened the Sol system. Their ships blotted out the stars, their weapons locked on Earth's cities, and their generals prepared the broadcast that would make history. In the control center of the lead dreadnought, the Emperor stood before a massive screen, ready to address the galaxy. His first words would be an announcement of Earth's fall. But before he could speak, the signal flickered. The broadcast went black. Then, a single voice filled every screen, every ship, every station across the galaxy. A calm, steady voice. "Human. We are patient, not weak. You were warned." And in that moment, the hunters realized they were prey. The first strike. The Valoran armada had been the terror of 1,000 worlds. On the day they came for Earth, they arrived like an eclipse made of metal and fire. From the farthest colony to the cities of old Earth, every human saw it. Massive shadows passing across the sun, black warships filling the skies. The Valoran fleet stretched so far that their lines curved with the planet's horizon. They had come with a single goal: erase humanity. In their command decks, Valoran generals spoke in cold voices, giving final orders for the bombardment. They imagined cities turned to glass, forests burned to ash, oceans boiling under their weapons. They thought this would be the easiest war they had ever fought. Then, the sky went quiet. No gunfire. No missiles. No energy beams. Instead, the Valoran ships began to vanish. At first, it was just one destroyer, gone from the sensors in a blink, as if it had never existed. Then another. And another. Whole squadrons disappeared into empty space. Valoran communications erupted in confusion. Unit 6, report. Where is Patrol Wing 9? Command, we've lost the... Silence. The Emperor's flagship scanned the area, but there was nothing. No wreckage. No explosion. No radiation. It was as if something had swallowed the ship's whole. The galaxy watched the live feed, and for the first time, the audience leaned forward, not for the victory of the Valorans, but to see the mystery of what was happening. Then it happened again. Only this time, the cameras caught a glimpse. Something dark moved between the stars. It wasn't shaped like any ship in the galaxy. Its outline bent light, as though it were wrapped in shadows. And it moved fast, faster than any known vessel. It appeared for less than a second, and in that second, 3 Valoran cruisers simply broke apart, in complete silence. No weapon fire. No warning. Just destruction. Valoran commanders shouted for their ships to spread out, to keep distance, to scan for cloaked vessels. But no scan could detect them. The attackers were invisible. Inside those shadow ships, humans worked in perfect silence. Their faces were calm, their movements precise. They had been training for this for decades. Every weapon, every maneuver had been planned for the moment the galaxy would come for them. This was not defense. This was execution. One by one, Valoran ships died in the darkness. Some were torn apart by weapons no alien had ever seen, beams that sliced through armor like it was paper. Others were crippled by targeted strikes that hit only their engines, leaving them adrift before something finished them with a final blow. And then there were the disappearances. Ships that simply blinked out of existence. The truth, which no alien would learn for years, was that those ships were boarded by human strike teams, silent, armored, and merciless. The crews were taken. Not killed. Taken. The Valoran High Command began to panic. Messages became desperate. Enemy everywhere. Request immediate backup. Shields are useless. They're inside the perimeter. There, static. The Emperor, watching from his throne aboard the flagship, began to understand something he had never considered before. This was not a battle. It was a hunt. And his armada was prey. Suddenly, the dark shapes appeared again. This time, hundreds of them. Ships the size of cities, bristling with weapons, emerging from hidden positions in Earth's orbit. They were human ships, And yet no one in the galaxy had ever seen them before. Where had they been hiding? The answer came too late. The human fleet opened fire, not with chaotic volleys, but with the precision of a surgeon. Every shot had a purpose. Valoran command ships, communications relays, and heavy weapon platforms were destroyed in the first 60 seconds. The fleet's coordination shattered instantly. And then came the voice. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a threat. It was calm, measured, and certain. Leave or you will not leave at all. Half the Valoran fleet tried to retreat. The other half kept fighting, but it didn't matter. Every ship that stayed in soul space was gone within the hour. The galaxy had tuned in expecting to see Earth's destruction. Instead, they had witnessed something else entirely, something they didn't have a name for yet. But they would. They would call it the first strike. The hidden teeth. The galaxy was in shock. The Valoran Armada, the Empire's pride, the fleet that had burned worlds into history books, was gone. Not beaten back. Not damaged. Gone. In the grand halls of the High Council, alien leaders stared at the reports in silence. The feeds from the battle played over and over, but there was no understanding to be found. The human ships had appeared from nowhere, fought like shadows, and vanished again. The galaxy's most advanced sensors had recorded nothing useful. No energy signatures. No launch trails. No weaknesses. It was as if the humans had been holding their breath for a century, and now they'd exhaled with the force of a supernova. And yet, no one knew where this strength had come from. For 100 years, Earth had shown the galaxy nothing but polite smiles and empty hands. They had traded small ships, basic technology, and only the most harmless of weapons. When aliens visited, they saw peaceful cities, museums, oceans, and farms. A species that valued art, music, and conversation over war. That image was a lie. Far below the surface, under mountains, deserts, and deep ocean trenches, Earth had been building something the galaxy had never seen. A fleet not of numbers, but of predators. Ships designed not for patrols or intimidation, but for perfect, surgical annihilation. And they had built them in places no alien had dared to look. The first secret was the oceans. While most galactic species saw water as a barrier, humans had turned it into a shield. Entire shipyards lay hidden beneath miles of saltwater, protected by camouflage that made them appear as empty seabeds. Submerged dry docks produced warships in silence, their movements masked by natural seismic activity. The second secret was the moons. Not just Earth's moon, but dozens of hidden outposts in the shadows of asteroids and small moons in the Sol system. These were not colonies. They were weapon vaults, containing long-range kinetic cannons and stealth missile batteries. The third secret was the people. From the day humanity entered the galactic stage, every child on Earth learned two things: how to build and how to fight. Schools taught not only math and science, but the fundamentals of survival, tactics, and engineering. Entire generations grew up with one shared mission: prepare for the day the galaxy made the mistake of underestimating them. For decades, Earth had quietly bought alien technology, not the newest, but enough to study. Every ship they purchased was taken apart piece by piece, its secrets stripped bare, its flaws documented. Then the humans rebuilt it better, faster, stronger. And they never told anyone. They did not chase alliances. They did not build a flashy fleet for show. Instead, they disappeared from the galaxy's mind, like a predator sinking into the tall grass. Even their own diplomats were part of the plan. Men like Jonas Hale, the quiet face of humanity in the High Council, were trained not to win arguments, but to lose them in just the right way, to look harmless, to make humanity forgettable. It worked. When the Valorans came, the galaxy expected a sleeping planet. What they got was an apex predator that had been watching them from the dark for generations. And the humans had one more secret the galaxy didn't yet know. During the first strike, many Valoran ships had simply disappeared. The truth, locked deep within classified human files, was that these ships had not been destroyed. They had been taken intact, along with their crews. Some were now sitting in hidden human shipyards, being studied. Others were being used for something else. Deep beneath the ice of Europa, far from any prying eyes, hundreds of Valoran prisoners sat in silent rooms. They were not tortured. They were not questioned. They were simply observed, studied, measured. The humans were learning how they thought, how they fought, how they feared. Because humanity knew one truth: this battle was not the end. It was the beginning. And somewhere, in the shadow of Earth's moon, the black-armored fleet waited. Silent. Motionless. Hidden teeth ready to strike again. The message. For 3 days after the battle, the galaxy waited. The Valoran armada was gone. Thousands of ships erased from the stars, but no one knew what Earth would do next. There was no broadcast, no demands, no celebrations. Just silence. The silence was worse than the battle. On worlds across the galaxy, news screens replayed the same haunting images. Black shapes moving in the void, Valoran ships vanishing without a trace, human warships appearing out of nowhere and cutting through the most feared fleet in existence. Every commentator had the same question: what did Earth want? The Valoran Emperor, humiliated but still alive, was locked in his private chamber aboard the only dreadnought that had escaped. His generals urged him to rally the remaining fleets, to strike back before humanity could recover. But the Emperor didn't answer. He had seen something in those moments, something in the way humans fought, that chilled him more than defeat. They hadn't fought for survival. They had fought like executioners. And executioners never stopped with just one victim. On the 4th day, the silence broke. Every communication network in the galaxy, military, civilian, private, suddenly froze. Screens went black. Voices died in mid-sentence. Navigation systems failed. It didn't matter if you were on the High Council station, a merchant ship in deep space, or a pirate hideout in an asteroid belt. Every channel switched to the same thing. A single view of Earth. It wasn't filmed from a ship. It wasn't a broadcast from a station. It was as if the planet itself had stepped into your room, hanging there in perfect clarity, its blue oceans and white clouds almost glowing against the darkness of space. Then, a voice spoke. It wasn't loud. It didn't shout. But it carried the weight of a star collapsing. Absolute. We are patient, not weak. The words hung in the air like a blade. For 100 years, we watched. We listened. We learned. We saw how you rule, how you kill, how you think. We saw your empires rise on the bones of those who could not fight back. And we saw what happens when you mistake silence for surrender. Across the galaxy, leaders leaned forward in their seats, their throats dry. The Valoran Dominion thought patience was fear. They thought Earth would bow. They were wrong. Their fleets are gone. Their soldiers will not return. Their worlds are yours to rule, if you dare to keep them. But remember this: if you come to our world again, if you touch our people, there will be no fleets left to save you. There will be nothing. The voice paused. It was not the pause of someone catching their breath. It was the pause of someone giving you time to imagine exactly what they could do. We will return to silence now. But silence does not mean safety. Watch the stars. We will be watching you. The image of Earth began to fade, but before it vanished completely, the voice spoke one last time. You were warned. And then, the galaxy's systems came back online, as if nothing had happened. But nothing was the same. On the High Council, some leaders argued that humanity's warning was a bluff, a trick to cover the fact that they couldn't fight another war so soon. Others disagreed, and those who had seen the battle firsthand said nothing at all. The Valorans, once the most feared empire in known space, did not respond. They didn't send fleets. They didn't make threats. They didn't even answer calls from their allies. Entire systems within the Dominion went dark, their rulers suddenly very quiet. And on Earth, the black-armored fleet returned to its hidden places, unseen once again. Factories beneath the oceans continued their work. Training grounds in the mountains echoed with the sound of new recruits. The war was over, but the preparation never stopped. Because humanity knew one truth better than anyone else: victory is not the end. It is the beginning of the next war. And somewhere, in the cold void beyond the edge of the galaxy, something else was watching. Something that had seen Earth's message, and decided to test it. The reckoning. The galaxy didn't sleep after the message. Every empire, every pirate king, every wandering trader replayed the words in their mind. We are patient, not weak. You were warned. It wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. And promises from a predator are never empty. On the trade hubs of the Inner Rim, whispers replaced laughter. Merchants who once mocked Earth's simple ships now looked twice at every human freighter, wondering what was hidden inside. In the smoky taverns of war veterans, tales of the first strike spread like wildfire, ships vanishing without a trace, black armored soldiers moving without sound, fleets destroyed before the enemy even saw them. But the fear wasn't only among civilians. The High Council chambers, once filled with arrogant speeches and political games, had grown quieter. Leaders who had once laughed openly at Earth now avoided even speaking their name. A few dared to suggest that perhaps the galaxy should unite against humanity before it was too late. Those voices never lasted long, because no one wanted to be the one to draw Earth's attention. In the Valoran Dominion, the reckoning was even worse. The Emperor had survived, but his reign was broken. Entire sectors of his empire had gone silent, not because they were destroyed, but because their governors had cut ties with the Dominion, declaring neutrality rather than risk the same fate as the Armada. Valoran citizens whispered that their once invincible leaders had awoken a force they could never control. And they were right. Across the galaxy, small rebellions began to spark. Worlds that had been under the heel of empires for centuries began to rise, not because they had grown stronger, but because they believed Earth might be watching. The galaxy's predators suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders, unsure which shadow in the void belonged to a human ship. It didn't take long for strange incidents to begin. A slaver fleet in the core system vanished without distress calls. The only thing left behind was a transmission, a single human voice saying, "No." A pirate lord who had been terrorizing trade routes disappeared from his fortress station. The station's security footage showed nothing. One moment he was there, the next, his chair was empty. Hours later, a drone arrived in the capital of his homeworld, carrying his helmet and nothing else. Military intelligence agencies in every empire scrambled to understand Earth's capabilities, but their spies returned empty-handed. Human colonies appeared peaceful, their fleets small, their technology unremarkable. And yet, no one dared to test them. The real terror was that no one knew how much Earth actually had. Was the Black Fleet they had seen the full strength of humanity, or just the visible tip of something far larger? Some believed the humans had already infiltrated other empires, placing sleeper agents in positions of power. Others thought Earth had weapons capable of striking across light years without warning. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Humans didn't need to prove anything anymore. The galaxy's fear would do most of the work for them. In the shadows of the council station, Jonas Hale walked alone. The same quiet diplomat who had been ignored for decades now found every corridor empty when he passed. No one wanted to meet his eyes. No one wanted to risk a word that could be mistaken for disrespect. He paused at a window overlooking the stars, watching a formation of alien ships leave the station in haste. Somewhere out there, entire civilizations were rewriting their military strategies because of what had happened. And Earth had barely raised its voice. Jonas allowed himself the faintest smile. Not of joy, but of understanding. The reckoning wasn't the destruction of the Valoran fleet, it was the shift that came after. Power was no longer in the hands of the loudest or the most feared. It belonged to the one who could wait and strike only once. Humanity had waited for a century. They could wait longer. But the galaxy could not. The New Order. The galaxy didn't declare a new ruler. It didn't need to. No one crowned Earth. No banners were raised over alien capitals. But power had shifted all the same, quiet as a shadow passing over the stars. And that silence was more commanding than any speech. In the months after the first strike, the High Council still met, but its chambers had changed. The grand debates over borders, trade wars, and military expansions had grown cautious. The most aggressive voices, the ones who once demanded expansion at any cost, were now the quietest. Even the Valoran delegates, who had once spoken with the arrogance of conquerors, now kept their heads low, their words short. Every decision now began with the same unspoken question. What will Earth think? It wasn't law. It wasn't a treaty. It was something far more binding, fear wrapped in respect. In the far reaches of space, petty wars between smaller powers began to fade. Not because anyone told them to stop, but because no one wanted to risk being the next example. Pirate fleets disbanded. Slave markets shut down overnight. Entire smuggling syndicates vanished. Some claimed Earth's black ships had been seen near those systems in the days before the disappearances. Others swore the humans weren't involved at all, that the galaxy was simply policing itself now, terrified of what a second warning might look like. But the truth was more complex. Earth was moving. Quietly. Invisibly. The black armored fleet no longer stayed only in soul space. They were seen, briefly, on the edges of hostile territories. Never long enough to engage, just long enough to be noticed. A shadow on sensors. A silhouette against a distant star. A reminder. The galaxy began calling it the New Order, though Earth never claimed the name. It wasn't an empire in the traditional sense. No taxes, no governors, no flags. It was an understanding. A shift in gravity. The kind of control that doesn't require occupation, because everyone already obeys. On Earth, life appeared unchanged. The oceans still rolled under the sun, cities still hummed with life, and colonies still thrived on distant worlds. But beneath that normalcy, the machine never stopped. Shipyards in the oceans worked without rest. Training grounds in the mountains forged soldiers who might never see the public eye. Research stations in the shadows of forgotten moons built weapons so advanced even their designers whispered about them in fear. And all of it was done without a single announcement to the galaxy. Start with part 7, more unique and lengthy and more interesting and more suspense and more powerful story in paragraph. The silence breaks again. Years passed. The galaxy had grown used to the new order, not an empire in name, but an invisible hand that guided everything. No one attacked Earth. No one challenged humanity. Trade flowed, wars shrank, and the shadows between the stars remained quiet. Too quiet. On the far edges of known space, beyond the outer rim, strange reports began to surface. Ships were vanishing in uncharted sectors. Entire exploration fleets gone without a signal. Patrol drones sent to investigate returned with corrupted data. The few images that survived showed something. Ships. Large, inhuman, moving with an unnatural grace, as if the void itself carried them. The council dismissed the warnings at first. They said the regions were unstable, full of black holes and spatial storms. But Earth did not dismiss them. In their hidden war rooms, human commanders studied the images, slowed them frame by frame. These were not storms. And they were not from any known empire. One night, a single ship appeared in soul space. It wasn't Valoran. It wasn't from any registered faction. Its hull was blacker than space, its shape alien and unnerving, its surface rippling like it was alive. It sent no greeting, no demands. It just drifted silently toward Earth. Human fleets responded instantly. The black armored warships emerged from the shadows, surrounding the intruder in a tightening ring. Weapons were armed. Shields powered up. Then the alien ship spoke. Not with sound. Not with language. But with something deeper. An echo that pressed into the minds of every living thing in range. A single, alien thought, vast and cold. We have been watching too. The message was not a threat. It was a statement of fact. And in that instant, humanity understood they were no longer the only watchers in the dark. What followed was fast, silent, and brutal. The alien ship struck first, its weapons unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Beams of white fire cut through human shields as if they weren't there. Ships that tried to flank it found their systems shutting down mid-maneuver, drifting helplessly before vanishing in flashes of light. But humans did not break. For the first time in decades, Earth spoke, not to the galaxy, but to itself. Across every hidden base, every shadow fleet, every soldier's earpiece, a single command rang out. All units. Full reveal. From the oceans rose fleets larger than anything seen in the first strike. From the moons and asteroid belts came swarms of fast attack craft. Massive carriers emerged from stealth orbits, unfolding like mechanical beasts ready to feed. The battle was not easy. The alien ship fought like a god of war, cutting through dozens of human vessels. But humanity had something it didn't: numbers, coordination, and a century of perfect preparation for the unknown. Hours into the fight, the alien ship made a fatal mistake. It lingered too long in Earth's gravity well. The humans pounced, coordinating every remaining warship into a single strike. A wall of kinetic slugs, hypersonic missiles, and focused energy beams tore into the ship's living hull. When it finally broke apart, it didn't explode. It screamed. Not with sound, but with that same psychic voice, the thought burning into every mind. We are not the first. And neither are you. Then it was gone, its fragments dissolving into nothing, leaving behind only the echo of its last words. The galaxy would never hear of this battle. Earth didn't broadcast it, didn't speak of it in the council, didn't leave any trace in public records. But the Black Fleet began to move again, not just to guard Sol, but to patrol the edges of the unknown. Jonas Hale, older now, stood once again before the stars from the council station. He knew what the message meant. Humanity had spent a century preparing for the galaxy. Now they would have to prepare for something far older, far hungrier. And when that day came, they would not be silent. Because silence, as the galaxy had already learned, was never safety. It was waiting. And when Earth broke that silence again, it would shake the universe itself.